Protein channels and carriers. So before we start with the transport mechanism across the cell membrane, let us first understand this slide. In this slide, what do you see? You see a cell membrane, which is also known by the name of plasma membrane. The plasma membrane has two important components. One is the lipid and the second one is the associated protein. So here you see what? You see the hydrophobic ends of the hydrophobic heads of the lipid membrane and the centrally aligned are the hydrophilic tails. So this cell membrane is actually forming a barrier between the intracellular fluid and the extracellular fluid. But what is happening? A cell is physiologically active, we know, and it requires oxygen, nutrient and water for its normal metabolic activity, and at the same time it generates the metabolic waste products, and these waste products need to be removed from the cell. So we require a cell membrane or transport mechanism across the cell membrane that will allow the entry of certain substances and exit of certain substances depending upon the physiological activity of the cell. So basically, the lipid component of the cell membrane only allows diffusion of the lipid soluble substances. So what are these lipid soluble substances? Maybe oxygen, nitrogen, carbon dioxide. These are basically gases, or maybe alcohol or steroid hormone. So what will happen to the other substances? A cell requires glucose, a cell requires water. So how they will be going inside the cell? Otherwise this lipid membrane will cause no entry to these substances. But we also require these substances for the physiological process. So the cell has certain transport mechanisms which we will be studying in detail, which facilitate the movement of these substances across the cell membrane. Okay. So we are concerned with the diffusion of substances across the cell membrane. But the problem here is that some of the substances may not be lipid soluble. We had talked about it earlier. The ions, the water molecules or the large substances, they are not lipid soluble. So how will they move across the cell membrane? For that we will be requiring a passage. We need a passage through the lipid membrane that will allow the entry or the exit of the substance from the cell. So here you can see we have this potassium ion which is trying to move from the inside of the cell to the outside. So what does it require? It requires a passage. It requires a tunnel. So this tubular passage is formed between this integral protein, and this is known as a protein channel. This channel has a central pore which allows for the free movement of water, ions or smaller particles. But when a substance is large in size, it cannot fit into this pore. So what do we require then? We require a carrier protein which will bind to the substance. It will go a conformational change and it will allow a passage, a free passage for the substance so that it can be transported. So these two structures are very important when we talk about diffusion. So simple diffusion will be carried out by the protein channels, and the facilitated diffusion, which involves the transport of the substances which are large molecular weight, will involve the carrier protein. Pore is an example of a protein channel which is an integral protein, and as you can see in this figure, it allows for the movement of substances according to their concentration gradient from a region of high concentration gradient to a low concentration gradient. Important characteristic point about pores is that they are non-gated, so they are always open and allow for the free passage of the substances. Here we see aquaporin, which is an example of pores. Aqua means water, so these aquaporins are basically the water channels, or they allow for the diffusion of water through this. They are highly selective for water, and this selectivity is because of the diameter of the pole and presence of electrical charges, which provide selectivity for the molecules. In case of this aquaporin, it has a very narrow diameter and therefore any other hydrated ion fails to pass through it. So it is highly selective for water, and we have approximately 13 different types of aquaporin in our body, and they can be upregulated or downregulated according to the physiological conditions. The diffusion of ions across the cell membrane is through these ion channels, which are creating a tubular passage for the passage of these ions, as you can see, from a region of high concentration to the lower concentration. So what are the functions of these ion channels? One, we know, is the transport of ions. Second is, because these are charged particles, they are also help in regulation of electrical potential across the cell membrane. So if more of the positive ions are entering inside the cell will become more positive inside, or it will become depolarized. Okay, and if there is more exit of the positive ions from the inside to the outside, it will become repolarized. Okay, so these are basically the electrical potential across the cell membrane, which are governed by these ions. The third important role is cell signaling. So once these ions enter inside the cell, there are a number of pathways which are activated or inactivated. So they play a role in cell signaling, which we will be studying in later classes. Now these ion channel also have name. They have, we call them by the name of sodium channel or potassium channel. Why is there? What determines the specificity of that channel? Why is that so, that only sodium is passing through the sodium channel or potassium is passing through the potassium channel? It is because of two important properties. One is gating of the channel, and second is the selectivity filter, which determines that which channel will allow which of the ions or cations to pass. Now I have been repeatedly saying that these ion channels are basically tubular passages that allow the passage of ions or water molecules. So when we talked about water molecules, we talked about pores, and in the pores it was an open channel. There was no gate. All time any molecule can pass through these pores. But when we talk about ion channel, it is not so. It is having a gate. A gate, as you can see here, when a gate opens, things can cross through the channel, and when the gate closes, nothing can cross. So if we apply the similar concept to the ion channel, these gates, which are basically tubular, made up of proteins only, because they are part of the protein channels. So these gates, when they close, okay, when they plug in the pore that is present there, so no movement will be there. So when this gate will open, or when this plug will be released, then the passage of ion can occur. So this concept of gating is very, very important. Let us study this in detail. Have a look at this image. You can see the presence of gates. So what are these gates? These gates, as you can see, are just an extension of the channel proteins. So these are also made up of protein, the similar protein. So when this gate is lifted away from the pore, then it will allow the passage of the ions, and then again a conformational change will happen in this protein, and then it will get closed. So the conformational change in the shape of protein molecule itself is leading to the opening or the closing of the channel mediated through these gates. You must be familiar with this story, the famous story of Ali Baba and the 40 thieves, and there were magical words like Khulja Sim Sim for the opening of the gates. So when I tell you, okay, these ion channels are also gated by this tubular structure, what do you think will be the magical words for the opening of these gates? So what do you think? How will this protein undergo a conformational change? What will be the signal that will lead to the opening of this gate? So we had talked about the ions, the transport of ions, and we said that these ions are responsible for bringing about electrical change, then signaling of the molecules. So what are these magical words for these ion channels? So one will be, these are opened by a particular voltage. So when a voltage influences the opening or the closing of the gate, it is voltage gated channel. Ligand gated means when a chemical is binding to a particular ion and leading to opening or the closing of the gate, it is ligand gated. And third is stretch mediated. A particular gate is stretched, leading to the opening of that gate. So it is known by the name of mechanical gate. So the magical words for the ion channel will be voltage gated, ligand gated and mechanical gated. So here are the example of the different type of gating. So when I say voltage gated gates, so what do I mean? The gates, for example, for sodium, potassium or the calcium ion channel in the excitable tissue like nerve and muscle, they are gated by voltage. You can see when the voltage is minus 16 millivolt, this gate is closed. So when the voltage become more positive, so the cell become less negative, that is minus 45 millivolt, the gate is opened and allowing the passage of ions. Okay, so the next magical word was the ligand gated. Ligand means a chemical. You can see when a ligand, that is green colored, is binding to the receptor or the protein, it is leading to the opening of this gate. Again there is passage of ion along the concentration gradient. This can be seen in cases of neuromuscular junction where we have the acetylcholine receptor. The third gate I said was a stretch operated. So whenever there is stretch to the receptors or the cell membrane, for example the hair cells which are present in the cochlea and the vestibular apparatus, they are operated by stretch. So whenever there is a stretch, the gate is opened and allowing the passage of ions. So we are very well clear now that we have three types of gating of the ion channel. One, voltage gating, second ligand gating, and third are the mechanical gated. Now this slide again focuses on the same point, that voltage gated channels are opened by the change in the voltage. Here we can see the sodium channel which are pink in color. It has two types of gate. The one of the gate towards the intracellular fluid and one of the gates towards extracellular fluid. And whenever there is a spark, you can see whenever there is a spark, it is leading to the opening of these channels and then passage of sodium ion. And then we can also see potassium, the opening of the gates which are present on the intracellular surface. The purple color gates are of that of potassium, and when the gates are open, it is leading to the movement of potassium ion across the cell membrane. So my point is clear, the voltage gated channels. So this is a figure that has been taken from Guyton. You can see the sodium channel. The sodium channel has two type of gate, activation gate and inactivation gate. The activation gate is present on the outside, that is extracellular fluid. Once it is open, in figure number 2, you can see the sodium ion is moving to the inside of the cell. And the inactivation gate is present on the inside. For I for inside, I for inactivation gate. Once it is closed, the channel becomes inactivated, hence the name. Okay, so we have two types of gates for the sodium channel, the activation gate and the inactivation gate, and you can see different voltages. When the cell is at minus 90 millivolt, the gate is closed. When it becomes voltage activated or it becomes depolarized, the gate is active, and then again it is closed. So we have this gating mechanism for the sodium channel. Now when I talk about the ligand gated, these blue color signals are binding to the receptors present on the cell membrane and causing the opening of these channel. So these are ligand gated gates. The ligand is any protein molecule, any hormone, any other chemical substance that is binding to this ion channel, and you can see in the other figure that whenever it is binding, there is conformational change in the ion channel, and you can see a tubular passage has been formed for the passage of ions. So this is ligand gated channel. Now you can tell me which type of gating do you see in this image that is taken from Guyton again. We have two sets of images. One is part A and part B. In part A you see the gates are closed, no ion is passing. Then something has happened and the channel is open for the entry of sodium. So what is happening? You can see blue colored acetylcholine molecule has bound to the receptor that is present here or bound to the protein channel. So this is which form of gating of the ion channel? This is ligand gating. Here the ligand is acetylcholine. The binding of acetylcholine will result in the influx of sodium from the outside to inside, resulting in neuromuscular excitation. You can also see the negatively charged mouth of the channel as such. So it will allow only the uncharged molecules or the small positive ions to pass through it, conferring it with specificity. The binding of the ligand to the protein channel affects the permeability in different ways. In the first example, you can see acetylcholine binding to the nicotininergic receptor, causing the opening of the gates of this channel and influx of sodium ions. In the second example, you can see the binding of the ligand to the receptor causes the structural change in the G protein, and this G protein then moves downstream to activate various enzymes or channels. And the third way is that this ligand can activate a channel from the intracellular site, and this can be seen in cases of local anesthesia. Now tell me, which type of channels are these? These are the mechanical gated channels. And why they are mechanical gated? Whenever a stretch is being produced, it is leading to the opening of this channel, and there is entry of the potassium ion from the outside to the inside of the cell. These cells are seen in hair cell and responsible for the mechanism of hairing. So what do you see here? This is the second characteristic of ion channels. For its selectivity, we have this molecular sieve, which is known by the name of selectivity filter. Here in this figure, you can see just near the entrance of the ion or the protein channel, we have this filter where which is known as ion filter or selectivity filter. The ion is shedding its water of hydration, and then you can see it is moving inside the channel. Just like the selectivity pattern of the pores, the protein channels are also selective in nature. The selectivity being decided by the diameter and the nature of electrical and chemical bonds along the inner side of the surface that will cause the attraction or the repulsion of the ions. For example, if it is a cation channel and it is lined by the negatively charged particles, it will cause attraction of the cations. And if it is an anion channel, it is lined by the positive, and then it will cause the repulsion. Now that we know that the selectivity of ion channel is based upon the diameter, electrical charges, the property of gating and selectivity filter, let us understand with the example of sodium and potassium ion channel why a sodium channel only allows the entry of sodium ion and a potassium channel only allows entry of the potassium ion. So why are these channels specific and selective for a particular ion? So first we start with the this slide. In this slide we can see the sodium ion that is depicted by yellow color and the potassium ion which is depicted by the green color. These are the unhydrated sodium and potassium ion. The sodium ion unhydrated is 0.96 angstrom in size, whereas potassium is 1.33 angstrom. So which one of the two is bigger? It is potassium. But when we talk about the hydrated form, the sodium ion has a diameter of 3.58 angstrom and potassium ion has 3.31 angstrom. So here sodium hydrated form is bigger as compared to the potassium. The size of hydrated sodium ion is greater than the hydrated potassium ion. These are the very important characteristics that determines the selectivity and specificity of the ion channels. So selectivity of sodium channel. The sodium channels are lined by the negatively charged amino acid. That means it can only allow a positive ion to come to enter the channel. However, these negatively charged exert a strong force on the sodium ion, literally causing the water shell to be shed off. So the unhydrated sodium ion can then diffuse into the cell interior. So the size of this pore channel is 0.3 to 0.5 nanometer. So the dehydrated or the unhydrated sodium can, that is 0.95 angstrom, can pass through this channel. At the same time, the unhydrated potassium channel is too large to pass. It is 1.33 angstrom, so it cannot pass. Hence, we have a selectivity for this sodium by this sodium channel. Now, talking about selectivity of the potassium channel, they are not negatively charged, as you can see here. The question is, how can a membrane channel be specifically permeable to potassium and not to sodium, even though the potassium molecular size is more than that of sodium? Sodium is smaller, still it is not able to pass through this channel. Why? The reason is, as you can see in the other figure, the carbonyl oxygen which are present in the selectivity filter, which are responsible for stripping off of the water molecules from the potassium, but they are not able to do so for the sodium molecule. Why? Because the sodium, the size of sodium molecule is so small that it doesn't fit into that selectivity filter, as a result of which the sodium does not shed its water molecule and the size remain larger. So the sodium ion that passes through this potassium channel has a size of 3.58 angstrom, that is hydrated, and the potassium which is passing through this channel is the dehydrated one, that is 1.33 angstrom. So potassium is able to pass and not the sodium ion. Now the blocker for the sodium channel is tetrodotoxin, and potassium channel can be blocked by TEA or tetraethyl ammonium. We have already studied about the ions. The carrier proteins in a similar way is an integral type of protein that provides a tubular channel or a passage for the transportation of the substance. This is basically a glycoprotein, and it allows the movement of the substances along the concentration gradient of those molecules which are larger in size, as we have said, glucose and amino acid. However, it is specific in nature. That means if it is transporting glucose, it will be specific for that glucose only, and no other molecule can pass through it. So we can also cite an example of GLUT4, a glucose transporter that is found in fat and skeletal muscles, and it allows only the transportation of glucose through its carrier protein. So here in this slide you can see different type of carrier proteins. You have one carrier proteins which carry only one substance. As we have seen, it is known by the name of unipolar. Then we have carrier protein which can transport more than one substance, and it occurs in the same direction. Here you can see they are known by the name of symporters. The yellow colored carrier proteins are symporters. They are transporting sodium and glucose in same direction, and sodium and amino acid in the same direction from a region of high concentration gradient, that is extracellular fluid, into intracellular fluid. And if the substance is carried in the opposite direction by the carrier protein, it is known as antiporter or a counter transport mechanism. Here you can see the carrier protein which are blue in color are acting as an antiporter for sodium and calcium, sodium-calcium exchanger, or sodium and hydrogen. You can see the direction of both the ions is in opposite direction. So we have three main type of carrier protein transporters. Patch clamp method helps to record the ionic current flowing through a single ion channel. So it is very important to study the characteristic of an ion channel. Here in this image taken from Guyton, you can see in the lower part, that is part B, you can see a cell that has been attached to a micropipette that has a tip of 1 to 2 micrometer, and this causes the formation of a patch from the cell, and the ionic activity within that patch that usually represent the activity of a single ion channel is recorded. On the upper scale, that is on the part A of the figure, you can see that this has recording from the sodium channel. It has a maximum and a minimum and an average flow. So maximum flow is occurring when there is inward movement of the sodium from the extracellular fluid, causing the cell to depolarize, so the voltage is increasing. And when this gate of the channel is closed, the voltage dips down and it reaches a minimum level. And in between the two voltages, the gates tend to snap open or close intermittently, resulting in average current flow in the sodium channel. Now if we try to learn how this patch clamping is done, first of all, the patch clamp comprises of a micropipette which has a tip diameter of only 1 to 2 micrometer, and it is placed against the cell surface. Once it is placed outside of the cell membrane, a suction is applied. This suction results in the pulling of the edges of the membrane towards the pipette. So what will happen? A tight seal will be created along with a ion channel. Usually it is one ion channel which is present in this patch. So when we have this ion channel, the seal is formed, so there will be no movement of the extracellular and the intracellular fluid between the two. The measurement of current through the ion channel is useful in determining the transport characteristic of a single channel, and we can also study about the various gating properties of that channel. Then it can also help us to understand the certain ionopathies or the defects that are related with the ion channel. For example, in myasthenia gravis or cystic fibrosis, it is useful. And we can also study the effect of various drugs which act on the ion channels. So this slide is for self-assessment. You can match up the columns